Okay, day 363, uranium, uranium, uranium. The world is talking about uranium and the uranium rat line. So that's nice to see. Sometimes you have to wait for news to kind of catch up with you, which is kind of nice. Today I want to talk about what got added to the uranium rat line. The uranium rat line from Russia to our eastern ports created a color of law, created a sanctioned covert program that gave the color of law to these diplomatic containers being shipped to the United States. That's when the depleted uranium and white phosphorus was added. That's when the drugs were added, because you had the color of law and protection all along the way, from the Navy all the way through DHS and the Coast Guard, Customs and Border Protection, into the United States. The spy ring was very helpful because it could warn ships along the way and planes of interdiction that was happening. Now, I'm not saying there wasn't espionage as well, but that's the key thing, was the drugs and depleted uranium piggybacked on the uranium rat line. I'm also not blaming Comey and Mueller for the depleted uranium or the drugs. That lies squarely right here with McCabe. So, if you want to go back in the timeline, the external server in Congress is discovered around the time of the inauguration, maybe a few days after. As soon as Trump's folks come in, Secret Service, different Secret Service people. Becerra swears in 2 days later, on the 24th, as the new Attorney General. So the burglary has to happen somewhere, I believe, on the night of the inauguration or maybe the day after. I have them, the whole group of conspirators, being on a plane to Pakistan and then on a plane, a 777 to UAE on the 21st. So I believe the burglary is on the 21st. But there was 20 burglaries. Now that to me sounds like 20 Blackberries and some laptops and a server, and I'll tell you why. But a month later, on March 6th or so, I had basically said this is a spy ring in Congress. This is a brotherhood, using the brotherhood here in the United States and Muslim Brotherhood overseas, and potentially a subsection of the Muslim Brotherhood here in the United States. But the key thing is, I talked to Deep Uranium. I talked to Deep Uranium before I met Jason a little bit later, about a month later. And I remember I was in Fort Wayne, and I was about ready to go to the Muslim Brotherhood spots up in Canada, which I didn't realize were PAC ISI until I met the filmmaker in Canada. And I got much more detail and much more drill down on Pakistan and PAC ISI. But at that time, I was still thinking Muslim Brotherhood. I was socializing this and speaking to Deep Uranium about this, and he's the one who said it was the PAC ISI that was deeply involved in the uranium trade in Pakistan, and the drug trade in Pakistan. That's how I put all this together. So I didn't necessarily come up with this myself. I was combining what Sibel Edmonds had said about McCabe starting a spy ring in Congress with Andre Carson, and Andre Carson was just the latest iteration of this Pakistani spy ring. The spy ring had gone on 20 years from the DC office, and this goes back to Mueller and Comey. But McCabe is really the driver of it. He was really the driver of these illegal wiretaps. So that's why I had included wiretaps at this time. But now, if you are Andre Carson, and your spy ring is being talked about in the press on March 6th, every day, 5 or 6 videos a day, right? And this filmmaker is saying he's up in Canada. I'm this journalist, which is me. I'm up in Canada saying, oh, here's a place where they were, and here's a place where they were, and they ran out of Canada with these drugs into the United States until they shut down the online pharmacies and they came in as pain clinics, because I'd gone to Michigan already. I'd done the pain clinic stories and so forth. And now this guy is coming down from New York saying, I'm going to go visit all these different spots. I'm going to go visit all these different safe houses in Virginia. I believe that the night of the inauguration, you have to get the servers out of there. The Blackberries are incriminating, the laptops are incriminating, and the servers incriminating. You have to get it somewhere. The reason why I believe it came to Hawkshead is because of the Lynette dog track to Rayo Abbas. We know a Rayo Abbas lives over here, a couple of houses. You still have to have somebody. They still wanted to keep access to this stuff in Congress. So I believe that's why he took it there. The reason why he moved it on the 6th I believe he moved it on the 6th or the 7th and deleted all the information, all the fake employees out of the system in the PeopleSoft system in Congress, is because somebody's coming. Somebody's shining a light on this thing. I interviewed Taggart. Taggart says, yeah, government markings on the laptops, government markings on the BlackBerries, government markings on the server. Charles Ortel found the server information in the FBI files. Gateway Pundit published the server information. The BlackBerry serial numbers still haven't come out. As soon as the police report comes out, we'll know that. The government laptop serial numbers haven't come out. But we do know from the Washington Post the 5,100 illegal logins. And we do know from the Washington Post that the credit union was the computers that they were using for the suspicious money transfers to Pakistan. We do know from the family's testimony in Luke Rosiak that these BlackBerries were sent to Pakistan to be worked on and then brought back later, doped. So this is why this became so important. Deep Uranium was the person I consulted. This is Hudson on Crowdsource the Truth on Jason's channel. He was the person I consulted, and he was saying that something's going on with Memphis. We didn't know exactly what the code word meant, but we had said, hey, the Memphis Maersk is one of these radioactive ships. It's not rated to ship radioactive material, but it's one of these radioactive ships. This is why JTTF hunted me down in Ohio. This is why the parallel construction happened. This is why, because we had stumbled on to the story, which is this uranium's coming into these U.S. ports, one of them being South Carolina, where a big MOX plant is, a reprocessor of uranium, and a big uranium customer, nuclear fuel customer, and with that's coming the depleted uranium and also the drugs. So that explains that. And this is going to come out. They're trying to keep this and contain this, no pun intended, to just a uranium story. I've met John Solomon before. I have most respect for him, but he's just getting half of the cookie. He's getting half of the Jello box. He's just getting the uranium side of the story. He's not getting the depleted uranium dark weapons trade, and he's not getting the drug trade through Javid. That's going to all come out, though, because the history, the modus operandi, pattern and practice, this is Awan Contra because it came from Awan Contra. Same banks, same methodology. The only difference here is it's under the color of law now. Before, this was the illegal trade. The only innovation that's been made is it's been put under the color of law by JTTF, by McCabe, and by DHS. Everything else is pretty much the same. How do I know that? Well, we actually did the research. The Adila rice mills up here in Sialkot. This corridor here is being maintained to Kazakhstan and Russia for very good reasons. Again, Deep Uranium consulted me on all this, all these secret CIA bases here, all these different airports, and this critical corridor through the stands up to Russia for the uranium trade. All this is going to come out in the wash. What were the other things? Well, different folks along the way said, hey, there are all these investments being made in Faisalabad. That's exactly where the money transfers are going. Imran's going under this name here to Pakistan, and he's being treated like a king when he goes back. These 12 farmers have had their land stolen here in the middle of Pakistan. This is where the processing center is. This is where we go to New Dawn Corporation. We go from just being a middleman, a shipper in 2009, 2010, to being a processor in 2011, where you make more money. There's more value add. You can actually make the opium into pill form. Now you're going to have a much higher market. You're going to make the veterinary medicine. You're going to make medicine for the U.S. VA market, watered down drugs for the U.S. VA market, and it's going to be much more profitable. That is the New Dawn Corporation that is created at Hawkshead, that same location, at that same address. What were other clues that Deep Uranium was right? All these other Awan cutouts and different things we found on social media, all celebrating the PAC 111th. Deep Uranium was right from the beginning, way back in May. And the wire transfers are going to confirm that. The two that we know about went to Faisalabad. You're going to find out that Imran's dad is critical in the growing. You're going to find out he got USAID money for the Pakistani quote-unquote floods, mainly going to his farmers that they taught how to grow opium. And this is going to come apart. This is not going to stay just a uranium story. The depleted uranium story is going to come out. The weapons factory in Punjab is going to come out. The USAID money for the farmers to cut over to quote unquote grow mangoes is going to come out. All because of what? Metadata, metadata, metadata. So, inside the House, because of the speech and debate clause, that's why they use the House, that's why they use the credit union, because it's protected speech, apparently, supposedly. You can't just write on a notebook with all the passwords of every congressman and senator. You can't just write attorney-client privilege and exclude that from court. You can't write that on a notebook after the fact when you're trying to keep it from evidence. That's like my old business law professor used to say, you could write "not responsible" across your forehead and then just start running over people on the road. No, it doesn't work like that. The attorney-client privilege dodge is not going to work on the notebook. This is coming out. This is not legislative information. This is not protected information. This is a scheme being run inside the House of Representatives for transferring illegal money in the drug trade and dark weapons trade. And this is the answer to the server. Now I'm going to say there's a credit union server and there's a Hawkshead server, but I'm still saying there's a mirrored server at the Navy Yard. That's the last question. We can all argue about that, but this will come out, and it's not just a uranium story.